If you've been in a hard season and you're wondering whether something is wrong or you're just feeling stuck or maybe you're going through a hard life transition, that's what we're unpacking today. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of something hard and wondered, does this mean I'm doing it wrong? Like, if you were really meant for this, it wouldn't feel this difficult. Welcome to the Building Thinkers podcast. Today's guest is a transformation and mindset coach who works with high-achieving women who are navigating major life and career changes, helping them go from stuck to unstoppable, using brain-based strategies that actually help rewire how they think and move and the stories that they tell themselves. We're going to talk about how to handle hard better. I'm so excited to be joined by
Eileen Suarez.
Eileen, when maybe clients that you're working with now experience rejection, or maybe for yourself, how do you help people think about that differently? Because some people might get the first rejection and they're like, oh, okay, fight or flight. They go kind of back into their shell. So how do you help people think about that?
Yes, I love it. Because right now, this is a really relevant topic. A lot of people are unfortunately going through reorganizations and layoffs. And the way that we think about it is, and I've heard this quote, many of you may have heard of it too, but it's like, it's not rejection, it's redirection. It's a time for you to actually pause and say, is there something better for me? Is there something bigger for me? And so what I do when I work with my clients, I am a certified brain coach. And so I do mindset and transformation coaching. And for anybody who's curious what that is, it is intentional rewiring of thought and behavior patterns. It uses neuroscience and it creates lasting personal and professional transformation. And it really helps people to understand like what is holding them back. And a lot of people believe if they get laid off, like I don't have value, my organization may not have valued me, or they always question why did this happen to me? And so what I do is I help people realize that, again, this is not a rejection, it's a redirection. There's something else there. And I know a lot of us hear, things happen for a reason. And there's always something better. When one door closes, another one opens. And it's so true. And so what I do to help my clients is, first of all, I always start with a strengths-based approach. If you actually reflect on what your strengths are, which you can do through Gallup Clifton Strengths, many people know about that. And if you intentionally use them and ask yourself, how can I use my strengths to really reach my full potential? It changes the way that you think. And then I get into the mindset coaching and I ask them, well, have you truly failed at something before? Because failure is a big thing. The minute someone gets these rejections or gets laid off or gets redirected to a new job, they always say, am I failing? And you're not failing. This is actually a growth opportunity. I feel like failure can relate to growth. And that's how I see everything, because life has not always been easy. Careers have not always been easy. But I really work with my clients to see, do you have limiting beliefs? And believe it or not, many people have imposter syndrome. That is something so many of my clients come to me with, is that, am I right for this other job? Will I be able to be successful in this job? And everybody does have success within them. You just have to be intentional and you have to be willing to take the chances on doing something new.
Eileen, I want to go first there were a couple things in there. One is this idea of failure. And I really, I have found valuable Amy Edmondson's work on intelligent failure. Mm-hmm. She has a whole matrix of thinking about failure in new ways, because the basic premise was, in a lot of the startup culture, there's this idea of fail fast, fail often. Yeah. And that didn't seem quite right to her for many people. And then there's this just like so much fear that becomes perfectionism of not even trying. And so she talks in her framework around intelligent failure of basically a filter through which you can think about if it's in a new area, if it's in an area of innovation. And so when you are working with people around this word failure, how do you like to think about that? Maybe just a little bit more on that.
Yeah. Well, so failure actually can like paralyze people. If they think, if I'm going to do this, what if I fail? And the way I help people is we have to create a new narrative. We have to think about the way we say things, because our brains, whatever we say, our brains are there to protect us. And so what I tell people is, since failure can paralyze you, instead of wondering about what if I do this and then I fail and then my organization doesn't see I'm competent and I'm not able to do things, I never think that way. What I think is, what if I don't do this? So I never think, what if this bad thing happens? It's like, what if I don't do this? If I don't do this, I don't grow. I don't get the exposure. I don't get to make a lasting change and leave a legacy within an organization that I work in. And so I've always had that kind of perspective. And that's what I do through my coaching, is I share not only my own lived experiences, but what have other people done that have made this better for them. And I just really want to emphasize that hard is truly not a sign that you're failing. Again, it's a sign that you're growing. And most high achieving women actually experience hard because they're stretching, they're evolving, they're stepping into something new, and you have to be courageous. You can't think your way through hard until you actually calm your nervous system as well. So through my coaching, I do a lot of regulation of emotions as well. That really helps. And just having more of a positive mindset. And confidence is built through action. So you got to do things to be able to become more confident. And so again, I just really think that a lot of people are just, they're scared, and you got to do things scared, right? We hear that all the time. And your life and the trajectory of your career can change overnight by doing something that really challenges and scares you. And if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
One of the mindsets behind this episode came from a video that Kara Lawson had posted. She is the Duke women's basketball coach. And in it, she talks about handling hard better. She's talking about to her basketball team about not waiting for life to get easier, not thinking, oh, when I'm a sophomore, it'll get easier. Oh, in the spring season, when we're, on our off season, but we're in the weight room, it'll get easier. And she gives all of these examples. That video so resonated with me because I played D1 sports, and I remember that thinking like, okay, if I can just get through this part, right? And I had a guest on a while back that talked about happy when-itis. I'll be happy when, kind of just thinking about like the next thing that's around the corner and wanting this ease and comfort, but realizing that it isn't toxic positivity. I want to be really clear about that. It's not only having a positive mindset. Positive mindset's great, but this idea of handling hard better, I like that language because it's this recognition that hard isn't necessarily negative, that in fact, if we see certain things through the lens of, to your point, growth, through the lens of exposure to new opportunities, why I think in this moment it's so important is because when you said, what if I don't do this? I think a lot of folks, whether they're in an organization or they're entrepreneurs, this question of if I don't do this, I think because of where we are in this moment of time, of technology changing so rapidly, which hence changes organizations very rapidly. If we're playing it safe, the safety is an illusion. Because if we stay exactly where we are, I do think that those are the people that will end up in some trouble if we're not willing to experiment and try and put our voice out there. So I'm wondering if you have more thoughts kind of around that.
Yeah. And I love the topic of AI, and I want to talk about that because a lot of people are, afraid. They're fearful. Okay, now we have AI. What's going to happen? The robots are going to take over the humans, right? And there's not going to be jobs, but truly it will never replace humans. What's going to replace the humans are the humans that are not being scared, getting themselves out there, being continuous learners and moving and growing with this technology instead of being passed up by it. And so my biggest words of advice for everyone is, do not be scared of what's coming, because just like everything in our world, what's happened over the years, everybody gets worried about it. And then it becomes such a great tool that we can use to better ourselves, to be able to be more efficient in the work that we do. And so you just have to get out there and learn it. And what I think we can do with each other is when you learn stuff and you teach others, I was in learning and development, it reinforces what you learn when you teach others. And so I think how we can help each other is encouraging each other to continue to learn and grow and learn more about AI and just practice and say, hey, have you used this tool? Because I guarantee you start sharing these tools with people and they're like, what? You just saved me hours and hours of time. And what I will caution people is do not use it to replace you, to copy and paste and put exactly what it says. Use it as a thought partner. We are creative humans and it will never take our creativity away. And so we need to also, really be intentional about how we're using these tools, because we don't want to come across as, hey, that person, every time they post something, they sound like AI. You don't want that to happen. And it happens, and it's happening fast because people are moving at such a fast pace, and they're like, oh, wow, I can save time if I just use this chat GPT. But really just be intentional about using it in a way that is going to benefit you and save you time, but not replace your own human connection, critical thinking, and creativity.
Eileen, I think one part in there I want to circle back to is the human aspect there. When you were talking about, sharing with other humans, the learning and growth you're doing. I think that that's such a powerful place to like, these are the experiments I'm trying. These are the things that I'm running. I've had like 4 conversations yesterday about some new things that were happening in Claude. Yes. The most recent update there is wild. And so I was finally able to do a couple things that I've been trying to do. I got it to edit the formatting of a Google Doc and actually give it back to me as a Google Doc that was editable. Sounds small, but I've been trying to get to that for a bit. And that makes a lot of possibility open for a couple things I was working on. And so I showed the exact like prompt to one of my other colleagues, and it was like maybe 4 words. And they were like, what? Something that it had other context in my projects and everything, but it has really drastically improved. So if you haven't experimented since like the 2023 version of these tools, please get back in and experiment. But I really wanted to highlight what you said, Eileen, about the people aspect of this. I think where we get into some trouble, in particular relationally, and start to become more and more like independent and siloed, is when we don't go to the friend to ask the question and we go to directly to the tools. We're missing these smaller moments. And one of the things that we know about job seeking and networking is the power of those loose ties, which is the person that somebody else knew that you met one time, and not necessarily your best friends or the direct people you've worked with, but that next person who might know about an opportunity. Well, imagine all of the exponential times that goes away if you now, instead of calling the friend or asking, or even posting and asking on LinkedIn or something, although you might get bots there too now, but asking a human. And so I just want to underscore the value of that relational side of it.
Yes. And I'm so glad you're saying this. Can we kind of talk about another topic? Because I feel it's so relevant here.
Yes.
So going back to the human connection part of it, I do feel, and this is part of my own mission, is to reconnect humanity, because we are losing it with all the technology, and especially in our youth. But I want to talk about networking, because a lot of people, and
a lot of people hate networking. They heard networking and they're like, ick, ugh.
Well, and you know why? Because one of the number one fears, we're talking about fear today, and doing things that are hard, is the number one fear among people is public speaking. And so people a lot of people are introverts, some are extroverts, and even extroverts get nervous about going to a random event that they may not know anybody, and they're going up and talking to people. And so as an entrepreneur myself, I actually go to networking events all the time. And sometimes I'll tell people, hey, let's go. And they're like, I don't feel like it today. And I'm like, those moments when you don't feel like doing something, you just got to get up and do it and take the action. Because of me being intentional about going to these events, I have met individuals that I would have never met before. And they have become partners, people I'm collaborating with. And it has opened up so many doors. I just left my corporate job after a reorganization recently in January. I've been to 4 or 5 networking events, and I mean, it's only been a month, and I feel so great on the progress that I've made. And a huge part of it is the networking and human connection component of it. Not just instant messaging or, sending messages to people, but actually saying, if you're in the same location, hey, let's meet, or doing a virtual meeting. But I will tell you, and I have people I mentor and I coach, and they've showed up to these events, and I see it on their LinkedIn, and they're like, hey, I did something that normally scares me, and I'm out there meeting people. And they're like journaling and talking about their experience, and it's showing their own growth. And so if you're not networking, get out there, do it, because human connection is so important during this time where we have so much technology taking over.
I think one thing that also strikes me about the power of human connection and sharing your story with others and your growth and kind of
Mhm.
learning and working out loud is it becomes less scary when it's kind of out there and
Yeah.
visible because you start to realize, I think this is how we kind of undo some of that on imposter syndrome. The further I get into my career, the further I have real conversations with other, in particular, I'm in some of the same space of high achieving women,
Yeah.
like friend group, and things like that. It just, we kind of attract each other. I find that once we start talking about some of these things, it's like, oh, you feel that way too. You're
Yes.
not sure what you're doing in that new project over there. Turns out nobody knows what they're doing. And I don't mean that in an incompetence way. Like,
Yeah.
you can be very competent at things and still not know exactly what you're doing because somebody's never done the particular thing you're doing before, or you've never done it in this way or in this context. And you may have all the skills and expertise, but it isn't until you go out and do it in this context that you build even more of that confidence. And so I think there's something too to just kind of like putting it out there, making it visible, or verbally saying it, that suddenly you hear this like, me too, me too. And there's something so comforting in that you don't get if you're isolated, or if you're just kind of thinking everybody else has it figured out, why haven't I? There's really still plenty of work to do. Even when the robots come, there's still going to be things for us to do. And building upon that and giving others opportunities when you see them.
We all, of course, are wired the same when, we're born, we're all like wired similarly. But what changes us and makes us unique is the way we approach certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes people just have to be redirected a little bit or guided, because what happens when you get stuck and you're like stuck in a transition or whatever those thought patterns are, if you don't change those behaviors, you start circling and circling, and that's when you feel really stuck. And so I believe that all of us can help each other. And something that I pride myself on and what I do and the work I do is taking people from stuck to unstoppable. And it's by letting them know you're not alone. This is not just something that's happening to you. Others are experiencing it. And by creating communities and also getting the help you need, whether it be therapy, coaching, or whatever it might be, there are people there who can help you. And you just have to really practice being intentional, pausing, emotional regulation, and rewiring your mind to get yourself into a new pattern. Because remember, your mind loves habits and it likes to create habits. And if you start changing your behaviors and your mindset, then now you've created these new neural pathways and you're going to allow yourself to live the life that you truly want to live. It takes time, and connection with others is going to be the key to helping you just not be alone and put yourself in isolation.
Will you take our listeners through your recent journey and how you walked through your own mindset shifts in transition?
So what I'm about to share with all of you is what I call my layoff to liftoff story. I was in corporate 16 years. I never thought it would happen to me. Due to the fear of the unknown, I applied for like 14 jobs within my current organization. But what happened next, like truly changed everything, is I applied for those jobs. I got some interviews. And after a couple of nights of like just waking up in the middle of the night and kind of having the fear of what's next, what am I going to do? I made a decision that I'm not going to settle for these other jobs just because I need something. I need to take care of my family. I need to worry about benefits and all of these things, right? And the steady paycheck. Instead of thinking about that, I actually had owned my business. I do coaching. I was focused on youth for 2.5 years. And I said, you know what? This is the time. I think this is my time to do what I truly want to do. So the next day at work, I withdrew from every role that I applied to. It can be hard to make decisions like this. Some people have to decide, do I want to stay in the organization? Do I want to go to another organization? What am I going to do next? And some people whose jobs are completely eliminated, like, hey, this role doesn't even exist anymore. Those are the people who have challenges. And what I will say is your greatest assets are going to be your mindset. It's going to be knowing your strengths and being able to adapt. And this is why it's important to adapt to all the changing technology today. I think this is the most important thing. A lot of people think, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. I have to have all of this planned out. I have to have my website, my strategy. I had some strategy, but until I left is when I got time to focus on building it even further. And so do not think that you have to have your whole life figured out before you make major life transitions. It is going to be hard, but don't forget, the harder it is, the stronger you're going to grow.
When you have just come kind of out of that moment, that your body and mind is in a bit of this survival mode. I mean, and it can be quite literally because the paycheck is gone or the paycheck is diminishing. And how do you, my question here is, when somebody's in that place of some fear and they want to move forward and they're trying to move forward, but there is this even like physical sense of survival. How do you help folks through that? And I recognize that also gets into maybe for some people therapy and other avenues of support as well. But what are some of the things that you like to think in that moment that really helps shift people?
So what I use, and this works very well in my coaching, is I always ask people, I want you to reflect back on one of your greatest achievements in the last 12 months. Okay. So what are your strengths? What are the strengths you used in that? If you can replicate that over and over and you can reflect on, did you do that same kind of thing every single time? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, have you truly really failed? And I'm talking about not just like it didn't work out as you wanted and then you pivot and you make it better and you learn and grow from it, but have you truly failed where it ruined like your life or your career? And most people will say, well, no. And that's where you get them really thinking, well, you know what? I'm being too hard on myself. Like I actually can do a lot. I have a lot of values. I have a lot of strengths. I have a lot of skills to bring to the table. And so what I would say is this is a time to reflect and you really need to journal. You need to write down how you're feeling. If you're having certain emotions, then you can work with someone like a coach or a therapist and you can help with that emotional regulation. But just, really valuing yourself and knowing that you can do anything. That's what helps people, because if you start saying, gosh, I can't believe this happened, I don't know what to do, your brain is going to protect you. That is what your brain is there to do. And if you keep having negative thoughts or saying what if or I can't, you need to change those I can't to I can, because then your mind will believe it and you'll get a more clear mind to be able to move forward.
I think in addition to the way you're thinking, the way you like put one foot in front of the other too might be to do some side work for a friend, or if you like build a website for somebody or whatever the industry is, to start that exploration and, build up a portfolio, or this is where you can show some expertise with the AI tools by building some things and explaining your thinking and just having an authentic voice to start building out loud, online can be powerful too.
I do want to tell people, we're saying you don't have to be completely prepared, but do prepare. And you know what I mean? Because unfortunately we do live in a different world today. And so you can prepare by writing your resume, right? Making sure it's up to date, because that's where people start fearing is that day it happens. They're like, oh my gosh, I haven't written a resume in this many years. I haven't had an interview for 20 years because I've been in the same job. And so prepare and know that people are there to help you. A lot of people use the company that they work for to build who they are, but you are something else outside of that. And they build their identity around one organization. When you have this gut feeling and you get warm and excited inside whenever you talk about a certain subject, that is your cue that that's probably your passion and there's a purpose behind it. And you just got to take small steps to move forward. And volunteer, help people out. You don't always have to get paid for stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, I did a lot of volunteer work. I didn't expect anything out of it. And now that people know I left my corporate job, they're coming to me and giving me opportunities that I never imagined. And so just do what your heart's telling you to do, and you are going to be successful, whatever you decide to do. But just have grace and give yourself time. And biggest thing you can do is reflect and have self-awareness.
So when it comes to handling hard better, or it comes to these maybe unexpected career transitions, what would you say if only people knew?
If only people knew how to stay like more grounded in things and confident and being prepared in some way. you have to think steps forward. And so I think what's important to say is, do you know what your passions are? Do you know what your purpose is? I know that's heavy. If you do not know what your purpose is today, I want you to think about that tonight, because it takes time to find it. But when you do, it will change your life. So passion, purpose, strengths, and have persistence.
So Eileen, when people are, let's say that they've learned about their strengths, where do they go from there? Like, once I know, and I've read about them and I understand, how do you help people use those or activate those in their work?
So I do some activities, like I know people like vision boarding. And so it's the beginning of the year. It's important to have goals. And instead of just saying, here's my goals and here's how I want to achieve them, the added thing that will make you always be able to achieve them is, what are my strengths and how can I use my strengths to achieve my goals? That's the missing part that a lot of people don't know. You asked me that question. That's another one. So by knowing what your strengths are and intentionally using them, you will achieve your goals. And also by visually having this on my wall every day. Every year I make one. Every year I achieve almost every single thing on the board, because I'm being intentional. And your brain, of course, you visualize stuff. If you keep looking at it and you are intentional, you will move forward and you will achieve your goals in life.
With every episode, and as we kind of wind down our time, this is a good transition to, we have a blueprint for thought that goes with every episode. And that is my effort. Sometimes I would find myself, I was reading another book, listening to another podcast, and I was like, am I doing something with this? That's the activation side. And sometimes reading can just be for fun. I understand. But if you're trying to have some sort of input for learning, you can marinate on it, you can reflect on it, you can journal about it, and then decide, is this something I want to bring into my life? So for example, even just that quote, handle hard better, is something I now say to my boys. Yep. It's something that I really think about. It's something that I try to not push away. Like, if you're doing impactful work, it is going to be hard. It's not intended to be easy. Otherwise, everybody else would be doing it too. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's hard. The buck stops with you, and you have to keep going and keep continuing to build your business, or, bring other people on and manage them, all that. And so I think that was another kind of aha for me just now, is the reason why I gear towards like activation is I want to see that impact. And I feel like that's a way I can make exponential impact, is if others can listen to stuff like this and learn as I'm learning from my guests, then we get to have this cool conversation, but we won't even know the full impact of who might listen to this 2 years from now, going through a layoff themselves and hearing Coach Eileen talk them through some of the things that you learned yourself.
It creates, and this is exactly why I love doing podcasts, because for me, I told you I want to build confident leaders across generations. And by being on these type of platforms that hundreds, thousands and lots of viewers are listening to, you create a ripple effect. And even if what we're talking about today just touches one person, two people, changes their life, and then they go share it with someone else, it's amazing. And you're right. You have to take actions. Don't overwhelm yourself and have all these goals. That board might look overwhelming back there, but I don't do all those at the same time. I take it one by one. I make sure that I'm taking action. I'm intentional. And if it's not working, you pivot and you become better.
Eileen, thank you so much for this conversation. I hope that our listeners really think about these ideas of handling hard better, and really maybe taking some of those small steps, thinking about what you shared about mindset and growth. And we'll put all the links to where folks can find you and learn more about your work in the episode description. And so I want to just thank our listeners. And if you are interested in those blueprints for thought, we'll have a link in the episode description where you can sign up for our newsletter. We just send every other week a link to the episode and then a link to the blueprint for thought. We won't spam you. I don't have time for that. You can sign up for that in the episode description. So Eileen, thank you so much for your time. And it was so good to connect.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And everybody go from stuck to unstoppable.